Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of How to Land 200 to 500k plus interviews without applying online. Part one, in
Part
parentheses.
one.
For those of you who don't know us, my name is Katie. I'm a coach at Career Sprout, and this is, on one of these sides, the founder of Career Sprout.
Good to meet you guys. We'll give it a second for everyone to trickle in. But if you are new here, like Katie said, my name is Gaurav Villani. I'm the founder of Career Sprout. Both Katie and I do this thing together where we help professionals land 200k to 500k job offers in the tech industry specifically. And every single Wednesday, we do go live here on LinkedIn at 10 a.m. Pacific to talk about all things related to the job search. Some days we'll talk about something very specific like today. Other days we'll do like resume rewrite. Other days we'll do Q&A, whatever you guys like. We typically do if we know we can talk about it to some degree. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. Today's topic, I think, is one that is really important. And I
Nah.
think most people are very curious to learn. And it's also something most people have not been taught. So that's why we're so excited to teach this to you today, because it is a thing. If you think about like all of us, right? Literally every single one of us on this LinkedIn Live, when we were in school, we were always taught like, hey, the job search, you apply to jobs, and that's how you get your interviews and job offers and yada, yada, yada. And I think that at one point in time that worked really well. Today, that does not work as effectively. In fact, there was data that was actually shared by Teal in December that found that applying online in today's job market has a less than 2% conversion rate, which means that if you're applying to 100 jobs, you can expect maybe 2 interviews at best. So since that, those are terrible odds. And so we're not really taught like, well, what's something else that we could do that's highly effective? And so something that we teach and we preach all day long, if you've been following us on LinkedIn, is sending very specific outreach messages to hiring managers, executives, senior leaders, either cold ones or warm ones or whatever. And we share a lot of these scripts constantly, and we share a lot of case studies of people who use it and make it work. But we will inevitably get messages from people that say, I've been trying outreach and it hasn't worked. And there's a lot of little nuances to that. And there's a lot of things you have to do before you ever send one message for it to work. And so that is why this is going to be a 2-part series, and we're super pumped for you to learn it, because once you do, it will freaking change your job search in a profound way and help you land high-paying interviews for jobs you actually want at companies you actually admire. So that is what we're going to teach you in this 2-part series. So part 1 is, what are all the things you should be doing first and before you ever send one single message? And then part 2, we're going to literally show you all the different ways to identify really good jobs that go beyond the job boards, and then the exact scripts you should be sending to, like who you should be sending these messages to, and then what you should say into them so that these messages convert into either high quality, meaningful conversations or actual interviews. Hey, Mac, did I miss anything?
The only thing I can really think of is a joke, but we do have some jokes sprinkled throughout. So.
Wait, can we start with a joke? I think a lot of these people, I feel like there's like 40% of people who join these calls just for your jokes.
Oh,
Could be
you
wrong.
think?
Maybe 10%.
Okay. Well, if there's one person out there, I'll count that as a win. I don't know.
Anyone here who'd like to start off with a quick joke from K-Mac? Your answer doesn't matter, actually, because she's going to do it anyway. But
I was going to say, I do kind of have a good one that I think I try to make you my audience. So I'm optimizing for you right now until I get one that makes you laugh hard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get, this isn't a knock knock. This is just a pun. I don't get why Marvel doesn't use the Hulk to advertise more. He's basically one big banner.
That was good.
Decent.
Yeah, that was good. Look, did you guys like that one? I love a bad joke in particular, Shrubi says.
Oh, that's a good one.
Ah, that was a good one.
I have another one that might make you laugh.
Okay.
This one's more well known, and then we'll get to the real training.
All right, go ahead.
My wife asked me the other day well, I guess I would say my husband asked me the other day where I got so much candy. And I said, I always have a few Twix up my sleeve.
Maya, did you like the second joke or the first joke? I trust Maya. I'd love to actually hear Maya's opinion on this.
Andy, what the heck? I thought we were buddies.
What did he say?
He said, gross.
All right. Well, you got some from here saying not bad.
All right. Oh, I got an awesome.
You got an awesome.
It doesn't say who that is.
Yeah, they wanted to stay anonymous.
It's actually one of my bots.
That's awesome. Listen, thank you guys so much for joining again. We're so pumped for this. I'm in particularly really pumped for this one. I just think the second you learn it, it's going to crush. Your job search will absolutely crush, and I'm excited to share it with you. Can we please get the topic? It's written there. It says how to land interviews for 200k to 500k.
No, she's saying, can we get to the topic? She's over.
Oh, can we get to the topic? Yes. My fault. All right, I'm going to share my screen. So here is what we are covering. Where is my thing? Here's what we're covering today, right?
Should have stopped while you were ahead.
All right. Fair. So this is what we're covering today. And so the goal of this two-part series is to show you how to land interviews for high-paying jobs in today's market without spending countless hours applying, and ideally in 3 weeks. And so that's the goal. What we're going to cover is how do you market yourself correctly? Then how do you identify the right opportunities, who to message, how to find them, and then most importantly, what do you say to them that converts? So when this is done correctly, you can expect results like this. Yesterday, if you guys didn't see it, maybe Katie, you can drop this link. It was actually very detailed. I dropped a playbook yesterday of how somebody was able to get 7 interviews in 15 days. She sent this to me on Friday. And 2 weeks ago, I had done a workshop where I actually, in these workshops, they're like 3-4 hours long sometimes, and I teach how to actually get these interviews. And so she followed the plan that Katie's going to link here, the playbook, and she was able to get 7 interviews in technically 16 days. I just wrote 15 days.
15 days.
So that was one person. And then this is another person who was able to land a conversation with the vice president at a company she's really interested in working for. And these are just a few more examples. And the cool thing is these things can happen really fast, right? Once you send a really good message that leads to interviews, it can move quickly. And this is why I'm so pumped for you guys to learn this, because I would love it if you can get into your offer as quickly as you possibly can, and an offer that you actually want. Okay, so let's start with what is required, because I think a lot of people will always ask us, like, what message should I send? Show me the script. Show me the scripts. And it's like, wait, before you ever send a script and potentially waste it on a really good prospect, you have to understand what is required for that script that you send to actually convert into a conversation. And so let's get into that. The way I want you to, you like that picture?
I do.
All right. My slides are basic, y'all. If you've been on my workshop, you understand. Okay. So I want you to reframe your job search in a particular way. I want you to think of you, yourself, as a business. Okay. Now, if you think of yourself as a business, the next question should be, well, what does my business need? for it to operate well and to stay in business? Well, it needs customers, right? That's what all businesses need at the end of the day, is customers. Just like how all job seekers need to get offers is interviews, right? So then how do we attract really good customers? It's through advertising. Has anyone, by the way, has anyone ever seen this before? If not, I'd love to know if you have. But all businesses, for them to get customers, need to advertise their business, correct? And the way we've been advertising ourselves as job seekers traditionally has been through applying to jobs. But if you notice, and all of you here, I'm sure, can attest to this, applying to jobs has not really worked out that well because the job market has changed. So think of it like this, right? When you are sending outreach messages, I want you to now use a second reframe called the food court dilemma. Everyone here on this live ever been inside of a food court at a mall? Yeah, even if you might be ashamed to admit it. Okay, when you go into a food court at a mall specifically, you're going to see a lot of different restaurants, right? Or like food venues. And each one of them tells you specifically what they're making. You know, chicken, fresh burgers, fresh sandwiches, Chinese food, yada, yada, yada. Correct? Now, what would happen if you saw these two signs? One just says we serve really good food, and the other says we make healthy burgers. Who do you think attracts more customers? It's a rhetorical question. It's usually going to be the person it's going to be the business that advertises themselves well. This is the reason I'm saying this, is because if you notice the difference here, this sign is highly generic and this sign is highly specific. And when we are sending messages on LinkedIn, for the reason most of them don't convert is because, one, the message itself is actually very generic, but really what the problem is before that to even work, and we'll fix the messages in part 2, is your LinkedIn profile is very generic, right? So when you go to a food court and one person says, hey, I just make really good food, and you're like, well, what kind of good food? You're like, well, what do you want? You're like, I make PB&J. I make really good pizza. So it's like, wait, I don't understand. If you can make all these things, what are you really good at? It's like, I don't know, right? But the other person says, I make fresh sandwiches, or, you know, vegan, the best vegan food in the country, right? Or the best like Italian food, whatever. The other is very specific. So you can't attract good customers without really good, relevant, or specific is another way to put it, marketing, right? Same with your LinkedIn profile. You cannot expect someone to message you back, even if you wrote the best script or outreach message in the world. You can't expect someone to message you back unless your LinkedIn profile is really good, it's really relevant, and it speaks to what they need. It's very specific. K-Mac, anything you want to add to that?
I think they were being funny, but I think this actually is one of the greatest things to highlight is relevant marketing. If you are targeting vegetarians, you should not have something that says healthy burgers unless there's healthy, you know, vegan burgers or something like that. Knowing your audience, and we'll get to this a little bit more, knowing your audience is so important. That first sign would not attract somebody that does not like burgers.
Yeah. And we're moving forward with this presentation under the assumption that you know the exact role you're targeting.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about this in any of our workshops, in our content before, which is the very first thing that we do every time we work with a client is something called a career audit, which is something most people overlook. And I'm not going to spend time going into that today because it can be we have episodes that we've done just on that. So if you are not clear on the role you're targeting, well, then you will have very generic a very generic profile, and a very generic profile does not convert to interviews. So if there are people on this that are unclear about the role they should be targeting, maybe Katie, you can drop the career audit.
Yep, I'll drop another link or post to a
Yeah.
link that walks through the steps that we take folks through.
Yeah, the career audit is going to also give you so much clarity on your job search, which is then how do you know what to target, right? So like we're again under the assumption that you know what you're going after.
Yep.
So now we're going to say, well, where can you actually advertise your business, which is you, right? The job seeker, you are the business. Where do you advertise that? It's LinkedIn. And we're not going to talk a little bit about, we're not going to talk about your resume. If you guys are in our newsletter, or if you're not, make sure you sign up for it. If I'm going to talk about the resume this week in this week's newsletter, but just so you know, spoiler alert, your LinkedIn profile and your resume should largely be the same. So when you have that, when you have your LinkedIn profile written well, that's how your resume should look, or vice versa. But in the link that Katie shared earlier, like the playbook that the person used to get 7 interviews, in the comment section, I linked our pre-written resume templates that you can use to help you write your resume. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so let's keep going. When you write your LinkedIn profile correctly, when you advertise your business correctly, your customers will want to speak with you. Remember this person that I said? Remember her? I shared that a couple minutes ago. She had a really well-written LinkedIn profile. Well, technically we wrote it. She's a client. And this is what she got back. This was from a vice president of a company she actually wants to work for. She's like, I don't generally respond to cold messages. Why? Because most are generic. But yours stood out. When I looked at your background, I realized I'd love to learn from you too. So now we're going to talk about the LinkedIn profile. And when you do that, when you get these types of interviews, you can expect to land something like this. This person had a 750K total comp plan. If you notice, she says, I can't believe that this final role was from cold outreach, not from a prior contact or applying. I am so excited for you guys to learn this. I'm serious, because when you do, this job search will be so much like simpler, faster, and in my opinion, it'll even be more fun. All right, so in part 1, we're covering how to write a LinkedIn profile that converts to interviews. And I want to start by just giving you the overview. Your LinkedIn profile, there's 4 components to it that we want to have really well written. And again, in Sunday's newsletter, I'll give you more of these examples, so you don't have to like try to recreate the wheel here. You can just use the ones that have worked. Okay. 4 components that matter. So the first is a header. The second is the about section. Third is a responsibility section. And then 4th is a data-driven accomplishment section. Okay. These are like the elements of what good marketing looks like. Okay. So like, let's start with the header. If you don't know what the header is, this is like the header right here. It's the one that's the things that are right underneath your picture. Right. And I want you to think of the header as like a teaser trailer for a movie. Not the actual trailer, but just the teaser trailer, right? It's like the 10-second clip that shows you that, oh my God, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back in the Avengers movie next year, right? It's just, that's like it. And you're like, oh my gosh, now I can't wait to actually see the trailer, right? So this is the first thing that somebody actually sees when you message them, right? When someone sends you a message, it shows you the message, but it also shows you who they are in the header. And if that header is not relevant to you, or it's written poorly, you have less incentive to want to reply to that person. Would you guys all agree? Like when someone messages me and says, I'm selling marketing solutions, I don't want to speak to that person because I don't need that thing, right? or it's irrelevant to me.
If anybody's selling jokes, you could DM me.
Yeah. Okay, so here's some examples of what a generic header looks like. These inserts are so timely, aren't they? Okay, what a generic header looks like. These are real headers of people who, you may have guessed it, are looking for jobs. And they've been looking for jobs for a really long time. Why? Anyone here want to drop a comment and guess why these don't work? Staffing or ninja, development guru, fearless. Anyone want to guess why they don't work? I mean, I'm going to reveal it in a second, but if you want to drop a guess, I would love to know.
There's also a delay, so it's going to take.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, here's what a high converting header looks like. This is what a low converting header looks like. A high converting header tells the reader what you do. Notice product leader, customer success, right? So right away they notice what you do. Yeah, good job, Roshan. Roshan says not specific enough. Words with no backing. These are great. Rowan says fluff. Exactly. Man, you guys are crushing it here. Crushing it. Awesome. Now compare the headers that we just saw to these headers, right? These are the ones we just saw. They don't work. These people have been out of work for a really long time. And I'm not trying to put them down. I just don't think that they know what works right now. And then these are headers that actually convert. These are clients that we've helped. Product leader, so customer success. So the first element of a good header is just telling the reader what you do. Customer success or product. And then the second part of that, you can either go into how long you've been doing it and or talk a little bit about what you've helped companies achieve or the types of companies you've worked with. So customer success, if you notice this, she's managed a $1.1 million book of business, 38,000 in annual recurring revenue, and 98% of her customers renew each time. Why did she say this? And why did he say this? Because this is what matters to a hiring manager that is going to hire a customer success manager. And this is what matters to a hiring manager that's looking to hire a product manager. K-Mac, anything you want to add to this?
No, I think we can move on to the next one. People are getting it.
So yeah, for those of you who said it, one person is declaring how good they are using words that kind of sound like they're bragging. And if you're like a human, when someone brags, what's the first thing we do? We cringe, right? When you declare how good you are, you come across as someone who's bragging. But when you demonstrate how good you are using relevant keywords that matter to your ideal customer, then you actually are demonstrating, right? Like it converts better. Like this person doesn't actually sound like they're bragging. They're just telling you what's important to you. So when you're writing a header, ask yourself, what would my future hiring manager like to see? What is important to that person, right? And if you're in your customer, and then the next question would be like, well, what are the achievements that I have that, again, would matter, right? For my specific role. And it doesn't have to be a lot. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second component of a high converting LinkedIn profile, which is the about section. Okay. Now, if the header is a teaser trailer, then think of the about section as the actual trailer, right? So we saw in the teaser trailer for the Avengers movie that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Dr. Doom. Now we're like, oh my God, I want to see the full trailer. The about section is the full trailer, but the header gets them to want to read that. And it's the same thing here. We want to avoid fluff words like ninja, guru, expert, things that are not quantifiable, things that would make somebody cringe, right? And I just don't even like the word expert because I think things always change. We can never be up to date. We're always learning. And an expert kind of presumes you know everything about like the thing you're talking about. So I say it's very tacky to self-proclaim. All right, I'm going to give you 2 examples of really good about sections. Notice this person, old client, going for a product marketing leader position. He asked himself, what would matter to a future hiring manager who's potentially going to hire me in a product marketing leadership role? Well, they would likely first want to know how long I've been doing the thing, and then what industries or verticals have I been operating in. So if you notice, he says 15 years of experience as a product marketing across gaming, toys, and entertainment. Then, what are the types of products that I have launched? And how have I done that, right? So he kind of goes into that a little bit. And then he drops one really cool thing that got brought up in almost every interview, which is all of his products in aggregate, because he works on mobile and gaming, have 1 billion downloads and have generated over 200 million in revenue. Now, for those of you who are on here, can you see how this one line would matter so much to somebody who is about to pay somebody $300,000? Right? Because they generated over 200 million in revenue. So to pay you 300K now doesn't seem as crazy. So we want to keep it very specific. Remember, nothing fluffy. Kind of keep it to facts and quantifiable information. These are facts. 15 years of experience across gaming, toys, entertainment, developing digital products and go-to-market plans. And then what has that achieved? I'm going to give you another really cool example that's converted really well. This is for a product marketing leader. I'm going to just not say anything for a second so you can actually read this. So I think once you read it, you'll see why, or I would hope you can guess maybe, and maybe you want to drop it in the comments. Guess why this one you think led to interviews. This person interviewed with 9 different companies. That was awesome. This was super cool. Anyone want to guess why this led to interviews? Well, it goes into it, right? Ask if we're operating under the lens of what would the future hiring manager want to see, they want to know, 1, what have I done? How many years of experience do I have? And what industries or verticals have I operated in? Product leader, 15 years of experience, B2B, SaaS, B2C, fintech, and consumer entertainment. Yeah, and Humayun said, yes, Neeta says metrics. You're exactly right. Exactly right. Then he tells you how big, how large the teams he's managed is right here, right? So now if you're stepping into a leadership role, your future hiring manager is going to want to know, how big were the teams that you manage? You say you're a leader. Did you manage 2 people, 10 people? How many? And then if it's like a bigger company and they are international, then they'd want to know also, do you have experience working internationally? So that's why we talk about this. So he covers basically everything his future customer would care about. Customer meaning the job, the hiring manager, right? The company. And then, as Neeta mentioned and a few other people mentioned, Bertha, you're right. He avoided fluff. He's not declaring how good he is. He's demonstrating it by letting you know that across his career, this is what he's helped his companies achieve and how he's done it. So now the reader, the person watching the trailer of your movie, gets excited to want to speak with you and or learn more. Do you guys see how advertising, like if this person had very fluffy things and he had the best scripts in the world, he could send the best scripts out to all these people and expect very little return. But the problem is then he could trick himself into believing that outreach doesn't work. When it's not that outreach doesn't work, it's how you're marketing yourself doesn't work, right? In the job search, there's only 2 problems. If you really look at the entire job search and you distill it down, you guys, there's only 2 problems. A, I'm not getting enough interviews. And B, I'm getting so many interviews, but I'm not getting offers. Problem number 1, I'm not getting enough interviews. That's a marketing problem. And that's what we're solving. That's why we're starting here, because once you market yourself, you'll get interviews. And then we can talk about how we prep for interviews, and we've done that many times too. So what we're solving for is the marketing problem. All right, so this is the second component of a really high converting LinkedIn profile, which is the about section. So we covered the header and we covered now the about section. And Katie, do you want to spend like a minute or two, like kind of talking about like when you look at job descriptions, what should you be keeping in mind to help you write your
So one of the most important things that we do, or we have clients do, is make sure that they understand their audience, recruiters and hiring managers. And so they actually go study job descriptions. And generally, if you're looking at a job description, you'll notice two really important pieces of it. One is the paragraph that talks about the role. And that's where it's going to talk through a lot of like what their expectations are, the impact they're going to want you to be able to have on the team, department, company. And then they're going to go into the bullet points of the job description. And they're going to talk about some of those responsibilities that you're expected to have. And so we're going to talk about through, as we go through the examples of what to pull. But this about section should be the aggregate. What are the things that are repeated across most, if not all, of the job descriptions you're reading? What are the things that are fundamental to being a product manager or a VP of product or a customer success manager or a chief product officer? Insert your title. What are the things that you're seeing across all of them, and making sure that you are painting that picture? You'll notice the top is a little bit more general. Those are the things that are repeated. And then the highlights is what tells them, it gives them an idea of what your experience actually means. Where, like, if you use the example of, hey, I saw somebody run across the field, you could picture so many different things. You could picture a little toddler running across a soccer field. You could picture, some dude running across just for exercise. And it could mean so many different things. But if I say, hey, I watched Usain Bolt run a 100-meter dash in 9.58 seconds at the Olympics, well, now that just painted a totally different picture in your mind. That level of specificity to talk about the specific instance, the distance, the time, the results. Now it's really easy for recruiters and hiring managers to see a picture of what it is that you've actually done. And hopefully that's relevant to the role. Obviously, you shouldn't talk about a 100-meter dash if you're going for a product role. Not going to be relevant. But you can talk about product strategy, revenue, things like that.
Yeah. And I want to stress the importance of like, to be able to have your job search go fast on the back end, we have to take the time on the front end to do this. And I think a lot of people, when they enter the job search, it's usually from a place of like something negative just happened, right? They got laid off, or they're in a toxic environment. They want to get the heck away from it as fast as they possibly can. So they rush into the job search. They put these types of generic pieces of information, and then the job search doesn't yield the results they want. And then the next thing that happens is they think they're the problem. And then they're like scrambling and constantly applying. And then like, oh my God, I got to write 400 different versions of my resume for these. It's like, no, they're just rushing. And one of the best analogies I can think of, and I just thought of this on Saturday. I was driving my daughter to her dance recital or dance practice, and we had a late start. So when we left my house, I put it in the GPS and it said, it's going to take you 25 minutes to get there, or 26 minutes or something like that. And we were already late. Anyway, so when I was on the freeway, I was trying to drive, unsafely as fast as I could. Like I was going over 80 miles per hour, 85 miles per hour. And what I was realizing was the GPS, even when I was going 85 miles per hour, was saying that I was going to get there 1 minute earlier. Right. But that 1 minute earlier does not make a difference in my life. But what is the risk of going 85 miles per hour? Right? I could get a ticket. More importantly, I could get into a car crash. I could burn out. Right. So I think of the job search, it reminds me a lot of that. Like the reason a lot of people feel burned out is because they're going so fast. but they're going so fast and it's not making a difference. So if I had woken up earlier and planned accordingly, I would have been able to get there with ease, grace, and flow. Right. And so this is the same thing here. It's like we're talking about this first, as much as you guys want to see the scripts and all of that. It's like, I don't want you to see that because I don't want you to drive as fast as you possibly can. But I will promise you we're going to get to that next week. But we really need to do this really well in order for this to actually make the scripts worth your time. All right. So the third section now is the responsibility section. And this is one that Katie and I also stress, right? It's not enough to tell the reader high level, here's what I've done. And both she and I have seen so many different LinkedIn examples, right? We've had over 850 clients now since 2016. I can't remember. Anyway, one of the biggest mistakes, or a few of the biggest mistakes I see when I go on someone's LinkedIn profile, aside from the fact that it could be generic or fluff or not quantifiable, is under each of their jobs, here's what they'll put. They'll either just put their title and nothing else, or they'll put their title and they'll tell me what the company does, or they'll put their title and what the company does and maybe one line of what they did. But now think of this. Remember, if we're trying to advertise us as our business, the customer, meaning the hiring manager who's going to give you $200,000, $400,000, $500,000 offers, they want to know, what the heck did you do? How did you do it? So like the accomplishments, the career highlights accomplishments over here, this is great, but what you did actually adds validity, because now they know, like, okay, this person knows what the heck he or she is doing. Okay. So this is where you can write your responsibility section for each job. And you don't need to go back more than the last 10, 15 years. That's really all you need. It can be written in a summary format or bulleted format. So here's a summary format. Right? This is the same client I showed you who's going for that product leader role. This is what he wrote at each of his jobs, a summary. He's telling you what he did and how he did it. And he's keeping in mind, he's writing this through the lens of, what would my future hiring manager want to know based on the jobs that I'm going after? They would want to know, how big were the teams? Were they globally distributed? What did you actually build since you're a product manager, etc. So there's no fluff in here. It's very to the point. And some people might say, this sounds so boring. It's like, yes, but boring is what converts. Clear, concise, and boring is what works, right? Now, here's what it looks like. This is a program manager that we supported. She chose to write it in a bulleted format. Doesn't really matter if it's summary or bulleted. It works the same. Again, she wrote this in the lens, technically we wrote it, but on the lens of, what would the future hiring manager want to know? Well, if you're a program manager, they probably want to know, how many projects have you supported or led? How big were the budgets? What types of stakeholders did you work with? Did you use Agile? Did you use Waterfall? Did you use something else? So tell us about that. And where did we get all this type of information? How do we know what to write about? Well, because we looked at 15, 20 different program leader job descriptions, and they all kind of kept asking for the same 5 to 7 things. And so that's how we wrote this. So the third component of a really high converting LinkedIn profile that leads to interviews is a responsibility section that you want to have for each of your jobs. Go back 10 years, at most 15 years. Is this helpful, you guys? I know I feel like I might be rushing through this, but is this helpful for you?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're coming up on time, so
Yeah.
we might have to speed through a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to, you can screenshot this if you'd like. I'm not going to go into each one of these, but this kind of helps you understand like how to write a really good responsibility section. Cool. And remember, for those who are asking, like Roshan, your LinkedIn profile and your resume should largely look the same. So whatever you're writing on LinkedIn should go on your resume, or whatever you're writing on your resume should go onto your LinkedIn profile. Awesome. All right, now we're going to go to the fourth and final component of a high converting resume. So header is a teaser trailer. About section is the actual trailer. The responsibility section is the action sequence in the movie. And then the accomplishment section is sort of like the happy, ending, right? Or whatever, the fairy tale ending. So I'm not going to go into this. I won't read it, but now you're wanting to tell the leader or your customer, who's the future hiring manager, here's what I've done at a high level. Here's actually how I've done each of those things through my responsibilities. But now what matters to them is also, great, well, what did you help these companies achieve as a result of what you did? And that's where an accomplishment section comes in. These could be just metrics that would matter to your role or to your future hiring manager. Okay. And you don't really need to add more than 5. I think we did here, but really you don't need to add more than 5. But again, for this person was a customer success manager. She basically wrote how many clients she worked with, how big was the ARR, how many clients she renewed, because these are the metrics that matter in her role. And then this is the product leader. I'm sorry, this is kind of small. Let me zoom in. This is what he wrote, because this is what matters to his future leaders or his future hiring managers, right? So we want to make sure we're telling the leader not only, or your future customers, not only what you did, but what you achieved. And that adds validity. Now, when your LinkedIn profile is written this way, then you add outreach to it. This is like adding gasoline on fire. This is how you're going to average 1 to 3 interviews per week. And that's what our clients are doing. Here's just an example of how it all kind of looks. If you guys want to screenshot that, more than happy to keep it here for a second. And I just thought I'd add this. I think a lot of people go back and forth on this. I've heard different opinions. Me and Katie know a lot of recruiters. We know a lot of hiring managers, and a lot. And I myself was a recruiter. Not one single person we know has ever said that when they see somebody who has an open to work banner, that they get turned off by that. People think that if I put this on, isn't it going to make me look desperate? Well, that's like saying when a company posts a job description, are they desperate? Do they look desperate? No, they're just telling you what they need at that moment in time. It's the same, right? And most of these hiring managers that you're going to reach out to and recruiters are going to reach out to, they haven't been living under a rock. They know that the market has been really tough the last few years. So it's not uncommon for somebody to potentially be laid off or be open to work. So my point is, it does not make you look desperate, and whoever says otherwise is that, and then you can fill that in. Inappropriate. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, Linda. Golly.
All right, y'all. So that is how we write really good LinkedIn profiles. You probably now hopefully understand why we want to have this before we start any sort of outreach, before we talk about scripts, who to message, what to say, etc. We are going to cover that next week. I'm going to cover a lot of that in this Sunday's newsletter. If you want to get on that, if you're on that, great. Thanks for being part of our community. If not, KMAC, you can drop a link to the newsletter. But I appreciate you guys so much. I hope this was helpful. And we can take a minute. KMAC, I can take a minute just in case I forgot something, or if anything you want to add.
No, I think you crushed it, to be frank. There were a couple of good questions that I think we could answer, a lot of similar questions.
Okay.
Bertha was saying, hey, what if we have additional experience that's not relevant to the job we're applying for? Great question. You leave it off the resume. It's not relevant to the reader, so you don't need to include it. The other one that I wanted to hit, this is another great question. How about you put accomplishments above responsibilities? Or how about you replace this with that? We don't have egos big enough to think that our way is the only way. We are exclusively telling you the things that we have rinse and repeat proven over and over and over again across our clients. So there may be people that are doing that. If you would like to spend some time testing and collecting data and send it over to me, I would love that. For everybody else who wants the proven rinse and repeat, I would recommend just sticking with what we know works.
And we've been doing this, honestly, guys, we've been doing this since 2016. As you notice, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just telling you what has helped 800 plus of our clients. And I think success leaves clues. And it's like, why try to recreate the wheel when you can see what works today? You saw the screenshots of the people getting interviews, 7 interviews in 15 days. Most people want that. And this is the exact playbook that she followed. She started with writing a really strong LinkedIn profile, and then she used the outreach scripts. And somebody just asked, I think it was Nita, how do I sign up for part 2? We announce all of our LinkedIn lives on LinkedIn a couple days before each time. So, but in case you're wondering, next part 2 of this will be on Wednesday, next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, just like today.
Yes.
So hopefully we will see you guys there. Anything else?
No, I think you nailed it. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit and giving me some pity laughs along the way and some real laughs. I think there were some real laughs this week, and I appreciate you guys a little extra.
I like it. We appreciate you guys so much. We'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.